today I'm going to be planting some winter rye and garlic. And I'm going to be doing that all in a single bed. So I just want to go through the process to show you guys how this can be effectively done, what I've learned throughout the last few years of using this technique. So let's go check it out. When I'm making the holes for the garlic cloves, I'm making them about 2 to 3 inches deep. And then down the course of each row of garlic that I'm planting each clove about 8 to 10 inches or so. When we're planting the garlic cloves, we want to make sure that we have the top of the clove pointing up, because this is where the shoots are going to come out, the green shoots, and then the roots will grow at the base of each clove. And the base of each clove is going to look a little like that, and that, of course, is again where the roots come out of. So what I'm going to do now is, at this point, it's November 1st actually today, and I'm going to take grass clippings and then put a layer on top of the row of garlic, and I'm going to have another row of garlic on the other side of this bed, and I'm going to do the same thing there. Then in the middle of this bed, I'm not going to put the grass clippings. Instead, I'm going to sow winter rye seed on down the middle of this bed as like an additional cover crop, because that seemed to work really well last year, or this past season. And I also just want to make a special mention that the area where I'm planting this garlic is a different spot, different location in the garden than what I did last year. If you grow the same garlic in the same area, or the same crop in general in the same area year after year, you can deplete the soil, and also problems with pests and diseases can increase as the habitat may in many cases become more conducive to the survival and even thriving of those organisms that would be problematic to the crop that we're trying to grow. So now I've got all the garlic planted on both sides, and I'm going to do a row of winter rye down the middle. I'm only doing one row of winter rye because I find that doing 2 rows is going to choke out the garlic, and can kind of choke out the winter rye as well, because it's just a little too close together and the plants get pretty tall. So you want to allow for that space for them to develop and grow. So winter rye is actually a very hardy winter crop. You can grow it, you can plant it later into like the late fall, early winter even, and it can still germinate as low as like 33 degrees Fahrenheit. So you know, that's really not bad, especially if you're running behind on planting and getting stuff in the ground. It's a really hardy, good option that you can still throw in the ground and get to cover the soil and at least get some start on growth before winter sets in. The winter rye can grow in a variety of colder climates. It can survive down to as low as -30 below zero Fahrenheit, of course. So I like to pair the winter rye along with the garlic because they can both get planted around the same time between mid to late fall, and don't really compete against each other too much as long as you give them enough space so that they have the ability to perform at their best. Now I'm going to add the grass clippings. Alright, so now this is all mulched with the grass clippings. It's kind of cool how it like meshes in a little bit more with the landscape. It doesn't look quite so barren, at least in the short term before the grass clippings dry out and fade and everything else. But now this plot is done, right? The garlic has been planted, the rye has been planted, and all of that has been covered, and now we have a nice layer of grass clippings which can help to supply nitrogen and other nutrients that can then be picked up by the garlic and the rye throughout the winter, so that those like the nitrogen and whatnot aren't leached or volatilized in the case of nitrogen out of the system, right? So that those plants can collect and hold on to those nutrients. Anyway, you know, it's always good to take a step back and kind of look at the work that has been accomplished and really kind of find appreciation in that, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, really why we want to garden, because we enjoy it. We enjoy working out in nature, we enjoy producing our own food, and just all of the lessons and you know, teachings and experiences that go along with that. Right, we want to build on that intrinsic motivation of what really feeds us to garden and to spend time outside. You can talk about the extrinsic factors like the you know, quantity of food produced, or fear-based, like, oh, you know, I have to produce all my own food and stuff, but that's not where the joy comes from, and that is not what makes gardening fun. And if gardening is not fun, you're going to be a lot less likely to go out there and garden and grow your food and all that, right? So intrinsic motivation is so much more powerful, and regardless of what the world looks like, it's important to feed and cultivate that intrinsic factor of feeding your own positive motivation on the inside, because it makes you feel good. It gives you enjoyment. Alright, so an interesting sidebar is, as I was getting grass clippings for the grass clipping mulch that I was going to use on top of the garlic and rye, I found that actually these grass clippings have been sitting here for like a week or two, and I've noticed some white growth on the inside of the pile. And I mean, I've seen this before, but I wanted to take a moment to point it out right now. So this is actinomycetes, or actinobacteria, and basically what it is it's actually a bacteria, even though it kind of looks more like a fungus, right? And you'll see it kind of grows in layers, like the grass clippings, and it kind of behaves a lot like a fungus, because it does kind of act like it produces like hyphae like spread throughout the pile. But it's actually a bacteria, it's not a fungus. It does produce a lignocellulolytic enzyme, which basically means that it secretes a substance, and that substance digests or breaks down the lignin and cellulose and like the tough compounds that are in grass clippings, right? That's why we as humans can't really effectively eat or digest grass clippings, because you know, we don't have any enzymes like cellulase, for instance, to break down the cellulose. So this is actually not a bad thing. The Actinomycetes will populate themselves within the pile, especially when it gets to a higher pH, so probably less oxygen availability, right? So it's more anaerobic conditions that it may do better in. And then also drier conditions, like once the inside of the pile begins to dry out a little bit more, that actinomycetes will actually really thrive and do well in those areas. Because you'll notice in areas where the pile, where it's like wet, more wet, the actinomycetes is not as pervasive. So some of these actinomycetes can actually, I don't know if it's this specific species that populates on the grass clippings or not. Might be others as well that can actually fix nitrogen with non-leguminous plants, because they can form associations with the roots. And then also some of these actinomycetes have been used as a kind of biocontrol and applied to plants to, because some of these actinomycetes can actually go after and break down some of the even like the chitin in some of these fungal pathogens as well, and it can actually help to neutralize some types of pest outbreaks. But actinomycetes in general in grass clippings is just a really good thing. They help to break down the grass, make it decompose more effectively, and the actinomycetes and such can help to enhance or benefit soil fertility or soil health. So it's actually a really good thing, and it's good to add it into the garden. In A Soil Owner's Manual by John Stika, the author recommends that the soil is covered by 65%, right? Because we don't want bare soil. Bare soil will quicken erosion. It will dry out faster, so it won't regulate the moisture as well, and it will also not hold water, right? A lot of that water will be lost to evaporation as the soil heats up and is exposed to the sun, so we want to keep the soil covered. That's why for my planting with rye and garlic that I keep the soil covered, even if the garlic hasn't grown and gotten established yet. What I've done is I've put a layer of mulch, grass clipping mulch on top, right? And that will help to regulate the soil temperature and soil moisture content. It'll help to act as a buffer from the air and from the sun, helping to regulate that whole subterranean environment. Ideally, you have living plant roots that are doing that job with a living cover, which can help to feed populations of beneficial organisms in the soil a lot more effectively. But the non-living biomass layers, such as the grass clippings, still help in a lot of ways. In fact, they're better than not putting anything there at all. As these two plants continue to grow and get established, they will provide their own cover that will hopefully be at least 65% on top of that soil. So Stika mentions this on page 50 in his book. The link to that book is down in the description. Highly recommend it. It's a really great book that goes over many different aspects of soil health, and it's concise. It's not like a big textbook or anything like that. It's a pretty thin book. It's relatively fast to read through. It gives you a really solid foundational understanding of soil health. And as an added bonus, the actinomyces that I talked about earlier in this video also are in that book too. I believe on page 35 he mentions them. So one final thing I want to make note of is about when I'm planting this garlic, right? So I'm planting the garlic closer to frost, right, as it gets colder. In fact, tonight it's supposed to go down to about 26. So I plant the garlic this late so it doesn't grow too much and invest too much energy before the cold winter sets in, at least so it doesn't invest too much energy in above ground growth. And then also I do this as it gets colder because I want to limit any early establishing pests that may take refuge in or near or around these developing garlic plants to limit the pest pressures from getting a head start or anything like that. It's also why I try to rotate where I plant the garlic as well, so that they're not growing in the same location in any 2 consecutive years. So on that note, thank you so much for checking out this video. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.